So, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Taking Charge of My Cancer podcast. I'm your host, Jorly Munoz, and I have with me an amazing woman that will tell us her story dealing with breast cancer, Brenda South. So, Brenda is a retired environmental scientist and a geodesist, which means Environmental Protection Agency and Defense Mapping Agency, widow and breast cancer survivor. She loves to kayak and swim, knit and crochet, and care for her senior rescue dog. She helps groups that care for homeless people, dogs, and cats. And she has 2 adult children. And she has been my patient since the beginning of this diagnosis. And I just so excited about our conversation, Brendan. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
Great. So you want to tell us about your diagnosis and how did you find about your cancer?
Yes. So in late 2020, I went in for my routine mammogram. Now I had skipped it a couple of years because I had moved to Florida and just hadn't gotten around to that and didn't know doctors and all of this. So I go in thinking it's routine. I'll be out. I had other appointments that day. And instead, people were getting very worked up and they kept doing more and more mammograms and then ultrasounds and more and more and more. And then they told me they found two suspicious masses. So that was a shock. And I made some calls and got myself in with a good place, which is UF. And in 3.5 weeks, I had a biopsy. And I didn't know what it would be, but I kind of had a feeling this whole thing was such a shock. And the people are pretty professional and they were very worried about it. So I kind of had a feeling something was bad. And it turned out to be cancer. So I had all kinds of testing with all the people at UF to make sure that they gave me the very best treatment and knew everything they could know about the cancer, because now the treatment varies based on all the details of the different cancers you could have. And so we all kind of came up with a plan, which was, it was about 1.5 months from the biopsy. I had a mastectomy surgery. And then 6 weeks after that, I had radiation. And I had 6 weeks of that. So it was a lot all at once. And then there was an extra thing that happened as well, which is my husband died right after my mastectomy in a surprise event. So it was a very difficult time, but I was really, I guess I was lucky to have all the good advice that I had from everyone and was able to go ahead and make good decisions and carry out all the treatment. My daughter stayed with me for 4 months to help me get through all of this, because I still didn't know that many people in Florida. But it all worked out pretty well. And I still feel lucky, despite those being kind of pretty shocking, disturbing things that occurred. I guess I feel lucky overall on all this.
Yeah, and again, I was as well in shock, and I am so sorry. And I've been telling you a thousand times. I get to meet your husband and your pre-op, and then
Yes.
and I always like to get family involved. And so, as for the audience that doesn't know, we usually see patients before surgery so we can do some baseline measures for our surveillance program in regards development of lymphedema. So we have something to compare to prior and post to be able to identify early onset of lymphedema and be able to start really working on it to reverse it. But when I met him, it was great. And then when you come back for your post-op, I was asking about him. And then I think that was like 2 days or something.
It was only a few days.
It
Yeah.
was only 2 days that he has been unfortunately passed. And I was in totally shock, like you were here. I was like, oh my God, I think I had tears on my eyes. And I'm like,
Right.
are you sure you want to be here? We can always postpone this. And you're like, no, we're just going to move on. And I think that like we talk about this afterward, like, you were in shock from
Mm-hmm.
all that on top of like dealing, like I cannot imagine dealing with your mastectomy and all of the stuff that are coming to you. And then the pain of losing, your significant other. So, um, that really kind of like, holy cow, she's a strong woman, like this is like, you're either strong or like in shock, like we just have to move on, right? Like what else can we do, right? But yeah, and then I think that we just really, I start appreciating you even more, just kind of like just going through all this process together and try to, be your support as much as I could. And then it was great to, at one point, maybe a year later or something, to start talking about this, right? Like, okay, how I was like in shock when you told me this, a year
Right,
ago, and
right.
see how you're like kind of coming up all this pain, and hopefully, now in the other side, of course, continue missing him. This is not gonna go away, but just kind of getting life together a little bit, easier right
Right,
now.
right,
So
right.
I'm really interested if we go a little bit more from your diagnosis about, tell me about this geodesist and the, I'm saying,
Oh, right. Uh, yeah, it's a strange word, but that was my job title. It's the study of the size and shape of the earth.
uh-huh.
I guess geo, it's all Latin stuff. And so they made maps and they surveyed land to get it was to help with airplanes and satellites and all kinds of things to help all of these it was military systems be able to know where to go, and navigate. It's all about navigation. So I learned a lot, and I worked with a lot of really good people, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. And
Yeah,
then again, as an environmental scientist, now I know why the nature and why the kayaking and why,
yeah.
when did you stop working, when?
So that was 2018. I retired. Honestly, it was from the date of the biopsy was 2 years exactly from my last day of work.
Oh, wow.
um, so my husband and I, we both we'd lived in Colorado, and my children had graduated college, and so I had the opportunity to retire, and I just felt like it was time. And so we had bought some property and an old house in North Florida, about an hour from Gainesville, where I am now. And he was very busy work fixing it up, and I kind of supported him and did a few little things, along the way. But it was um it was really good. It's kind of a dream. I used to always think a bit about what it would be like to kind of live out in lots of trees. There's a big woods and all of this. And I don't live there anymore now. That was kind of part of all my adjustment, but I still appreciate the time and everything I learned out there. And I still live around trees. Gainesville has lots of trees. So, after my treatment was finished, a few months later, I let myself settle down and think about things. And I started preparing the one house to sell, and got a house in town, and so just slowly transitioned. And now I'm in town all the time. Yeah.
Okay,
So.
great, great. Um, what type of resources do you use that help you to make decisions about your treatments? And I love when you say we came up with a decision about the best treatments, because I think this is so important. And I reinforce that to every patient I see pre-op. Is like, you are part of the team. You, at the end of the day, you are the one who is going to make whatever decision you want to make. Everybody help you and give you the stats and the scientifics and what we think is the best from traditional medicine. But at the end of the day, it's your decision. So I like what you say about, we really get you involved with the team to make those decisions. So what resources do you use that help you?
Yeah, well, first of all, it was honestly, I was really glad that I'd made a few friends in Gainesville, because I don't know that living an hour away in the country and not knowing many people, that I would have even known that University of Florida Shands would have been a terrific place to come, because the first mammogram wasn't there, and it was an independent place, and they had referred me to just a general surgeon, not even a specialist in breast care or anything. And so then I kind of remembered from when because this was all during COVID, but I remembered conversations with people, actually a knitting group I was in, and I thought, oh, maybe I should call you up. I should call them. And they managed to get me in. I think in some ways I kind of benefited because of COVID. I think they had more time to get people in, oddly. A strange thing to benefit from. But for the resources I used, a lot was the staff at UF. They provided me a mountain of information. It was a lot to even absorb, but it was very much a team approach. Dr. Spiegel was my kind of the lead, at least on the surgery part. But she involves a lot of people. And so I got lots of opinions, and people also speak their minds, which I very much appreciate. It's not at all an approach where it's kind of top down, where some bigwig just decides what's going to happen and everyone else falls into line and keeps their mouth shut. And I really appreciated that, maybe especially from some of my work experience. I just know, I think the best outcomes are when you have good, smart people together and people do speak their mind and say what they think. And then together you figure it out, what's the best thing. Because there's a bunch of different ways you could have approached all this. I also went, I did do some online to help explain some of the basics in between my meetings with doctors, because honestly, it's a little bit hard to come up with every question you have right there. Even though these are really good people and everything, it's kind of mind blowing. I wasn't expecting anything like this. And so I went online, and there's some kind of a national breast cancer organization. They had tons of information that I read, and it was really helpful to kind of give me the big picture of the different types of cancers and just all kinds of information. And then some of the other large medical organizations, maybe Mayo Clinic, I can't remember exactly, some of their things. To me, it's kind of comforting to see what the recommendations are from kind of a variety of people. Since this just all hit me out of the blue, and I was no longer in an office. I didn't even have good internet out there in the country. So, I would like go to local libraries and sit outside and use the free Wi-Fi for a lot of this stuff. And then another big one was my daughter was in a PhD program. And so she had all kinds of access to research journals and medical journals, along with other things. And she did some research for me and pulled some articles at some key points, because there's a lot to decide, really. And this was what about like on the aspect of reconstruction, should I do that or not afterwards? And thanks to my daughter's research, I ended up deciding not to, even though I was kind of youngish. I was 58 at the time. Yeah. So she even came up with a New York Times article about women who didn't get reconstruction and spoke about their lives and all of this. And anyway, it was really helpful. It kind of just broadened what I had to think about and look at, because this was something I never thought of. I thought I was super healthy. I thought, I just pictured nothing like this would happen, really.
Absolutely.
So, and I was in a lot of shock, and I really wasn't even in the state of mind to do a ton of research myself, really, other than a few searches online. So it was nice, to have a few other people helping.
Right. If we go back a little bit about like the decision of not having reconstruction and just decide to go flat, what was the thing that made you go into that route?
So it was it was partly my daughter's opinion. She's very opinionated. And she said, "Why would you want any extra surgery, Mom? Why would you want that? I can't believe that. Why are you even thinking about it?" And honestly, in this New York Times article, these women of different ages, they included photos of themselves. It was from a few years before. And I looked at that, and I read the article, I read what they said, and I thought, these women are beautiful. That'll be me, I don't know that I'm as beautiful as they are. I mean, some of them had, I don't know, kind of tattoos. They were like really artists, and they were tons younger than me. But anyway, it was inspirational. And I just thought, yeah. And you could always go later, even though there might be some difficulties, but you could do that later if, say, I changed my mind.
Okay, got you. How that has been affected you at all from like, have you noticed any, trauma because you're losing a part of your body and you're not seeing there anymore? What would you, if some patients are thinking, or some women out there are thinking like, what do I do? Like having the same kind of like at this point, if they're coming across this same decision.
Right.
What will be like, how are you doing now? Like what, 4 years later, right?
Yeah. I'm doing really well. And I guess I just want to stress it's not that I think reconstruction is bad. I'm really grateful that women have all of these options now. 40, 50 years ago, there weren't many choices. The women had extreme mastectomies and lots of things on their chest, including muscles, all kinds of things were removed. And I mean, they would have trouble, without full muscles and all that. They would have a lot of trouble being functional at all. So I am really grateful, and I would support people that do want all of that. But um, I guess it helps if you really like yourself, you know. And just for me, I was just in so much shock from finding out I wasn't as healthy as I thought I was. um, all I really cared about was treating the cancer. That's all I really cared about. I wanted to be healed from the cancer. And by the way, I did not think of the cancer as my enemy. I didn't consider myself fighting. I consider myself, it was a sickness, and it needed healing. I considered myself to need healing. I considered both breasts were still, even though one had cancer, they're part of me. Um, and we're just going to do the treatment that we need. That's it. We're just going to do it. And as we did all those extra tests, at first they thought maybe it could be a lumpectomy, like kind of a partial surgery. And then I think it was the MRI. There was more. There was more than the other tests had shown. So there was no question. It all needed to go. And I suppose it's odd, but in a way, I wasn't so concerned about that. The shock was just that I had cancer. And honestly, I kind of felt like I was going to die. That seems weird to say. I mean, I'm a positive person, but a
No.
part of me just thought I was going to die. And I think that's why it just pushed me into a different place. And appearance wasn't one of them, I mean, I still took care of myself, but I really just wasn't worried about it. If I lived, I knew I would be very, very lucky. And that's all I cared about, really.
I do.
And I guess maybe my family was supportive too.
Mhm.
Um,
Yep, yep. And that's super important. I always say to every woman when I get that question asked, I don't know what to do. What will you do? And then I say, such a personal opinion. And
mhm,
as long as you feel comfortable with that and you feel the support and you feel happy with it and you feel you just move on with life, then you should be okay. It's no decision is the wrong decision.
no,
Now,
no.
you mentioned something about an MRI show more
Mhm.
disease. So that's something I wanna for the audience out there to listen to as well. So many other institutions don't use the MRIs as often as they should.
Really? Hmm. Hmm.
So I have seen some other places that patients come in and they have just the biopsy, right? The mammogram biopsy. And then later on, boom, they have more disease on the breast that the original surgeon did
Hmm.
not
Hmm. Hmm.
realize because the MRI was not done. So again,
Hmm.
make sure that you guys, as the surgeon, do we need to do an MRI or not? Or definitely, I would like for you to do an MRI. How do you know that, the biopsy is just on one part of the breast? How do we know that it's not anywhere else? And yes, mammograms pick some of these spots in other areas, but how with breast uh, that is has more dense tissue, is harder to find those. So again, always kind of do your research and then always ask, like, no, I really would like, before we make any decision, it's not a rush. You don't have to have diagnosed and you don't have to have surgery in 2 weeks, right? So it's not gonna spread out that fast, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm. Right.
make sure that you take your time and look all the options and ask the surgeons for, okay, do we do ABC? And if you don't, I really would like for you to do that because I'm finding, and then you guys can read on resources, different research, good research, right? Good like National Cancer Society, not necessarily Dr. Google, but really good journals, medical journals. And then you can always go and give it to the docs and say, hey, this is what I'm reading. I would like for you to do this before we do anything else. So, because unfortunately, as we should, you as a patient, you shouldn't have to do that, right? You're trusting that your surgeon should know all this, right? But unfortunately, like you say, initially you were being sent to just a general surgeon or a breast specialist. And that's why specialists exist, because they know more about it. So again, that's another thing. Before you
Mhm.
have any kind of surgery, go to see a breast surgeon, like ask
Mhm.
how many
Mhm.
surgeries.
Mhm.
Or when do you spend most of your time and you want to hear the word 100% in just breast? And that will be the ideal surgeon to go see. So it's just really,
Right.
you have much better outcomes out of that. So,
That's right. Yeah, and I don't really think they had many surprises during the surgery. They had so thoroughly investigated everything. I didn't really mention that, but they found out what type of cancer. It's an estrogen, I think it's estrogen positive. And so we knew like chemo wouldn't have been helpful. Um, and then all this stuff was explaining, it was explained to me, but there was a lot of research done before the decision on the surgery and all that. And I don't think anyone was surprised afterwards. And honestly, it scares me a little to think if I had just marched off to the initial, like a general surgeon, I think the surgery would have been quicker. They would have charged in, and I don't think I would have had the results that I've had.
yep, yep, you're absolutely right. So, what will be three valuable tips that you learn about your journey with your diagnosis that you will share with the audience?
Yes, yes. The first thing I would say is form a team, and these need to be people you love and trust, um, because you're going to be relying on them at a very difficult time, and then you need to reach out to your team a lot and share things with them and ask for things, ask for help, and just make sure that you really trust them and that they have your best interest in mind. It and it might not be the people you think. Sometimes when you get a big diagnosis like this, people can kind of surprise you. Um, and then a second thing I would say would be ask a lot of questions and gather a lot of information. Um, and uh, and then I guess just kind of give yourself time. Don't make really snap decisions. Usually, almost at any stage, your medical team will let you like sleep on it. You know, even
Yep,
if you think you know the answer really quickly, I think it's a pretty good idea. These are big things that you're deciding on,
yep.
and most of us don't already know all of these things. We don't know anything about it, and you might be in shock. You might be. I mean, people could react differently than me, but sometimes I couldn't think very well. I had to sleep quite a bit actually, to kind of rest in between, and yeah, talk to your people, and sometimes just let a little bit of time go by to kind of check on your answer, to make sure that that's a good one for you. Um, that's it.
Perfect. How about the most painful lessons that you have learned in this journey?
Yeah, the most painful lesson for me was that I did have some family friends that I couldn't trust to be on my team. Um, you just sometimes you don't know. Maybe there were things that I ignored in the past, but you need to figure that out. It's really important. And you kind of go, some introspection is good, some looking at yourself and just noticing if there's some people that make you feel really bad, you feel terrible after every time you've interacted with them, it might be a good time to give that relationship a rest. Maybe later on, when there's not this crisis going on, it'll be fine. But you need to really surround yourself with the best people, who are good for you. It's really important, even if it means you have a small team. A small team of people you trust is better than some people that just aren't the people for you for this moment. So that was new for me, to kind of more evaluate and kind of be honestly kind of looking out for myself more than worrying about everybody else. Some people just had to kind of get updates later from other people. They weren't in. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm kind of glad you say that, but at the same time, as a woman, we tend to be putting ourselves last, right? First is the husband,
That's right.
second, or the kids,
Mhm.
or the family member, or sometimes, we deal with a lot of things are being asked from us, from work, from whatever, and we try
Right.
to solve like patients, whatever,
Right.
and then we put ourselves last, right?
Exactly.
And then
Yes.
and we tolerate it, and we
Yes.
tolerate it, and we don't mind it, and we quiet about it
Mhm.
until something like this happens, and you
Mhm.
just like, this is it, like my cup is full,
That's
that's
right.
it, I'm done.
That's right.
But and then you make these decisions that we talk about in the past and how you feel more comfortable with making to just say no and then just really try to really put yourself first.
Mhm.
But at the end is like that shouldn't be that way. I think we should be thinking about ourselves first.
It should.
But in a step, because sometimes I always say that to from the patient standpoint, right? So sometimes I say to patients, if you are the caregiver to your significant other who is having issues with cancer or any major disease, and you don't take care of yourself, then if something happened to you, who's going to take care of your significant other, right?
Right.
If something happened to yourself, who is going to take care of the kids? No matter how
Right.
grown up they are, they're always going to be the
Right.
kids, right?
Right.
So, or your husband or whatever. So sometimes I think that we gotta start thinking about ourselves and give us a little, like I call it, my me time.
Exactly.
Me time
Exactly.
is the time that I have for do whatever I need to do.
Mhm.
Exercise, journaling,
Mhm.
yoga, meditation, go eat with a friend,
Exactly.
read,
Mhm.
go
Mhm.
kayaking, whatever it
Mhm.
is out there that
Mhm.
make you feel comfortable and make you feel good. It's
Mhm.
so important.
Yes.
And don't wait until you come across something like this, cancer or any other situation before you make that decision. So I think it's really important.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think it was part of my healing. It was kind of difficult for me, but I think it made my healing easier and better. And that's what I needed to do. That's what anyone who's had a cancer diagnosis needs to do. And it means it's kind of like on the airplane, they make you put, if you're with a child and there's an emergency, they have you put your own seatbelt on first, and then you can help everybody else. Also your air mask, right? Or your air mask. They have you put your air mask on first, and that's not what a mom would not naturally do, right? Um,
Yeah.
but that is what's needed to do. If you can't breathe, you can't help anybody else. So you can
And
help everybody later when you've healed, but you
yeah,
need to tell them no, because there will be people that still expect you to do a tremendous amount for them, no matter what you're going through, and
exactly.
that can't be allowed. You just can't let it happen.
Do you have any counseling through all this situation, not just because dealing with your cancer diagnosis, but because the loss of your husband?
Um, I did not. It was in the middle of COVID. We didn't even have vaccinations yet. And I hardly knew anybody. And I don't ask for help a lot. But I did find some grief groups later. My daughter joined some grief groups after she went back home, after my radiation was done. And she had such good luck with hers. They were online, but it's still okay. I mean, I suppose in person would be ideal, but just to be around other people who are also in grief. Now, and by the way, the grief things were for her for loss of a parent. For me, it was for loss of a husband. I do know that there are groups, support groups for cancer as well, but they weren't meeting, or I didn't know about them. But there was lots of deaths with COVID, so there were a lot of groups, and those things helped me a lot. There was a big variety. Um, there were several. I think I did. There were two main groups that I went with. A lot of times it'd be a hospice or a hospital would have it, and then they'd open it. Maybe it wouldn't normally be open to as many people, but during COVID they opened it all up.
Yeah.
And I was on two different groups with two groups and two of their groups. So at times I was doing four.
Yes, good.
um, just to even be reminded when times are rough that there's other people, and grief is grief also,
Yeah,
and I think there's grief with cancer too,
of
you know.
course.
Um,
Yeah.
so it was helpful. I didn't do them for a long time, but I did them several months each, and it was helpful. It was helpful. Yeah.
Okay, great. Um, I how we kind of already talked about your mental health and the resources. We just pretty much went through all this.
Mhm.
Um, and then we kind of already talked a little bit about your physical appearance as well, since we already talked about your decision and how you feel with yourself. And again, all this, again, at that point was even harder because COVID took over past a lot of things. But now it's so many really good information. Actually, if we go back into not having reconstruction was back then 2020 versus now is a huge movement now about, it's called flat closer and flat
Mhm.
groups and really a lot of things talking about like, how I actually interviewed somebody else. I don't think I have released her, but she's actually a psychologist who went through breast cancer and she decided to go flat. And one of the things that she was saying is like, there's never an option from plastic surgery, right? So plastic surgery give you a lot of the options in what type of reconstructions to get, but usually she felt that she was not given the option of not having reconstruction at all.
Mhm, mhm,
So sometimes again, it's a lot more natural now, it's a lot more support now, it's a lot of more information now
mhm,
that people can reach out to it. And I think that will be really, again, be helpful to help with any decision.
mhm.
Regards
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Um, how about any activities that you would recommend during your cancer treatment?
Um, yeah, mainly, I think it goes along with taking care of yourself. I would suggest people try to find something they love, whatever that is, whether it's if they have a hobby, make a little time to do something that you love. And I understand not everybody might be retired like I was, and my children were adults. So I was really lucky. My responsibilities were way down from what they had been just a short time before. And so maybe that might be harder for some people than it was for me. But what happens when you're doing something you love is your mind switches off thinking about cancer and the treatment because there's really no point in endless thinking about it. I know I'm not going to sleep if I'm fixated. And I've continued that throughout. Like right now, I have a friend who also had breast cancer, and she could rattle off right now all the acronyms and everything for her cancer, my cancer. I can't even say what it was. I mean, I know I had cancer. I know I did the treatment. You know, I can't fill up my brain with that stuff. That's not going to be good for me. And I don't need to. I'm not the surgeon. I'm not the oncologist. That's not me. I just need to do the things that the people I've chosen advise me to do. And then I need to get my mind in a good place. I need to be as healthy as I can. So for me, I did a bunch of quilting. I worked on a really difficult quilt for my son, and it got my mind off because I had to really concentrate. And then the other things, some of the things you've mentioned, meditation or walking in a natural area, or maybe just sitting in a natural area. I mean, I don't know if you have a nice tree and a bench in your backyard, just give yourself a little time to go there and sit. It doesn't have to be a big deal or something glamorous. Think about what you like. I mean, maybe you give yourself a hot bath every night. You go to bed a little early. Whatever would be kind of luxurious and give yourself a treat. That's what I recommend, because you want to have your mind relaxed enough to sleep at night. You really do need your sleep at this time. And it really doesn't, there's a limit to how much you can think about this. It's happened. And you want your mind to be able to rest, and going over it endlessly, which I could tend to do for sure, isn't fixing it, is not making it better, you
Mhm.
know. So I guess time with a pet, make sure you ask for help. um, give yourself just time to absorb all these changes. I guess that's what I'd recommend. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your rescue dog and all the other things that you do with people, with
Okay.
dogs, with,
Okay.
homeless. Tell me a little
Yeah.
bit about that.
Okay. So it's now, what is it, 3.5 years later, and I live in town, and I had a dog at the time, and he lived another almost 2 years, so that was terrific. He's great company. And then I couldn't get another one. He died, and I couldn't get another one for a while. But then I started volunteering at the Humane Society because I finished up with that house in the country and put it for sale. And I said to my daughter, "What do I do now?" And she said, I'm signing up for the Humane Society. So I started being a volunteer and I fell in love with this old dog. He's 9.5 at the time. And he'd been used in fighting. And so he had a number of health issues. I didn't know everything when I adopted him, but I just knew I thought it'd be good company for me. He's a very brave dog. And I wanted to be influenced. I'm careful of who I spend time with because they need to be a good influence on me. And a really brave dog who survives through abuse, I thought that'd be a good influence on me. And it has been. It has been. He's a good dog. I still have him. And then I joined a church, and one of the things I loved about him is they do what they call a Monday meal every week, and they provide a meal for the homeless population. They also support, it's called Helping Hands Clinic. And this is just a small bit of support for that, where they provide free medical care to these homeless people. Probably some of the people at UF help work on that. So I do that every week. And I do a bit less at the Humane Society since I have my own dog and he needs care. But it feels good and it lets me meet people. And yeah, and then I do some outside things as well, like the kayaking, things like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that's amazing. And again, I have a dog and I love her. Her name is Luca, and it is amazing what a dog can do to your life. So again, uh, at one point, some people may feel like overwhelmed. They don't want another responsibility because it's having like another little kid in the house. But I think they're like totally like there for you. They perceive where you're not feeling well, no
Right.
matter what if
Yeah.
you're mad at them, if you're happy with them, they're always
Right.
there for you. So I think
Right.
it's such I think that was something that was very helpful to have, like even going through COVID, you just whenever the world was like upside down and everything was shut down and you couldn't leave, and it was just so nice to have that love from somebody. So I think it's a great idea. It's so many dogs out there
Mhm.
need the help and need, my kids, when they were in high school, I think we volunteer in the animal human society as well. So we came and walked the dogs, and that was really a nice way to kind of help a little bit. So that's really nice of you. Is anything that you want to say to the listeners before I let you go?
Uh, I suppose if you're listening, you've had one of those rough diagnoses or somebody you loved it, and I guess I just wish you good luck. And I just encourage you to reach out to everybody you know and find the best people and make your team um, and just dig deep and get through it. And we're all rooting for you.
Awesome. That was amazing. Thank you so much. It was just so great to have you. And I'm sure that you've been touching a lot of people and help them on the best decisions possible. So I really appreciate you doing this with me, Brenda.
That's right. It was a privilege. Thank you.
You're very welcome, and you have a great evening.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.